Okay, so here's another one. Tom O'Connor 24. All right, how cool is space?
I'm assuming he's referring to the thermodynamic properties
I
of
don't think
temperature.
so.
You don't think so? Oh.
I don't think so. I think we can answer
I
that one.
must be a techno uber geek or something.
Super cold, sometimes super cool, sometimes, and super cool all the time, I think, too, in terms of the standpoint of our presence there, too. I think
Yeah, that is way, it's not cool, it's way cool.
It's way cool. And, I think we could talk all day about how cool it is with respect to the stuff that's going on the space station, both from a science and just how we live there standpoint.
Yeah.
I think, you could start from the tips of the solar arrays and come all the way in. And have some really interesting conversations about
just being able to figure out how to dock a spacecraft. I mean, it's not like in the science fiction movies where they just
point at it and go.
Yeah, they just point at it and go, and they just go chunk,
Straight
and they're
line.
docked, and then they open the hatch, and here we are. I mean, it's a big deal to dock a spacecraft.
Space is very cool.
However, the temperature of space,
yes.
the whole concept of thermodynamic temperature requires that you have a substance. You need molecules, you need atoms. So if you are surrounded by a vacuum, which is devoid of molecules and atoms, it's hard to define a temperature. So you could define the temperature of an object in the vacuum of space, but to actually define the temperature of space is a little difficult to do. And so when we talk about temperatures, maybe it's going to be minus 100 degrees centigrade. That might be the temperature on the outside of your spacesuit if you were in the shade during a spacewalk. And then if you were in sunlight during your spacewalk, the outside of your spacesuit might be 150 centigrade.
But it's because your spacesuit is there.
It's because your spacesuit is there, but because there's some really clever engineers that understand things like math and science and that kind of stuff, they've been able to design the spacesuit so you're nice and pleasantly warm when it's cold, or pleasantly cold when it's warm, and you can concentrate on your job even though the outside of your spacesuit may be screaming.
Yep. And that's cool.
And that is cool.
That's cool.
Okay, so here's another one from Thomas Short. So what is the most useful experiment performed on ISS? Oh, and in parentheses, excluding effects of microgravity on humans. Well, that's where I think some real pay dirt is going to come out, is looking at human physiology when you change gravitational forces by a factor of 1,000,000. I mean, think about that. Change any other biological parameter, temperature, pressure, pH, something like that. Change any other parameter by a factor of 1,000,000 and see how long it takes for the nematodes to curl up and die. And the fact that we could send human beings up into space and back, and they basically take a licking and keep on ticking. I think that is just an amazing discovery in itself.
Yep, and it's I know he said excluding that, but I think the point you made is huge in terms of that difference in a gravity measurement and the effect that it has on us, and why it's important to have a place like the space station to look at things like combustion and how fuel burn. And you're taking that one little criteria out of the equation and you get hugely different results and learn all these really impressive things that help us make fuels for rocket thrusters more efficient, and also help us here on the ground with our own automobiles or whatever else we want to run.
And if we had more efficient rocket thrusters, we might be able to keep the shutters open when a vehicle's coming.
That's true. And that human side of it too, I think what's cool about that is we learn these things about our bodies in space and how amazing our bodies and our brains are, and they adapt to this new environment. And I think it's really interesting for us to see how that can take place just without us doing anything. You can go up there and your body and your brain figures out, hey, I'm floating here. I don't need a skeleton or muscles anymore. And it starts getting rid of it. And then we have to be creative enough to figure out ways to counteract that.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we're figuring out ways to counteract it so we can live in that microgravity environment, but we're also helping people here figure out how to deal with osteoporosis and those kinds of things, and also help us get back so when we're not just this blob of mush when we come out of the Soyuz.
Yeah. Other experiments besides the human effects. Combustion, I think, is a big one.
Yeah.
We're learning things about combustion. One is this concept of cold combustion that's come up, where they see fuel being consumed at reaction rates indicative of combustion, but the temperatures are way low. They're around 800 centigrade instead of around 2000 centigrade. And so it's like, whoa, what's going on in here? Fuel and oxygen are being consumed at the rate of a combustion process, but the temperatures are 1,000, 1,200 degrees lower than what they should be. And nothing like this can happen on Earth because gravitational forces will just snuff it out. But anyway, that's just one example of a whole new aspect of combustion is coming into a discovery phase because we have thought about doing this in a weightless environment.
And it's, you know, the question is a hard one to answer too, like the most useful experiment, because I think they're in the array of things that we're doing on board, and I think you could probably, you know, name any scientific area and there's something happening on space station associated with that, and there's something useful, valuable going along with it.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's impressive to see.
And you cannot preordain the value of any given experiment before it is done. And so, which is why we have a smattering of science all over the map here on Earth. People are studying all different kinds of things, and you wonder, why are we studying this? Well, who knows? Something may come from it. And it's the same kind of thing. We study everything and anything that we can on station simply because we're there and we can. And you never know when one of these seeds are going to pay off in silver dollars.
And I think it's the same as here on Earth. Some of the most beautiful discoveries come from deviating from what you thought your path of
or from
study
failures.
was. Or from failure.
Yeah.
And I mean, it happens in the labs down here every day. I think some of the most wonderful discoveries have not been the thing the scientists set out, you know, looking for. And it's really great because I think on station now, we're looking at how do we become more flexible in the way we use our crew members and the way we use our equipment up there to allow some of that
science
to happen
of opportunity.
more often. Yep.
So it's hard to make predictions on which piece of science is going to be the most valuable. And so what you do is you cast a big net, fund a little bit of everything as much as you can afford, and then stand back and watch the show.